Hi, Reggie back speaking about Healing America's Narratives. Chapter 7, the post 9/11 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and specifically the lessons not learned by the administrations that began those wars and conducted them over 20 years. Lessons not learned from World War II and from Vietnam. So we're going to move into looking at the shadow elements of violence, of arrogance, greed, and excess as they pertain to these particular wars. Just as an example, as of February 2020, according to the Military Times, the war in Iraq had cost some $1,922 billion to American taxpayers. And just to put that into perspective, a trillion is something that most of our minds don't really readily grasp. So here's an example. 1 million seconds account for 11.6 days. Okay. 1 billion seconds account for 31.7 years. 1 trillion seconds account for 31,710 years. So we're speaking about a lot of money, $1,922 billion just for the war in Iraq. That money primarily went to the cost of combat, to private contractors, to the promotion of democracy on the ground, to reconstruction, to veterans care, and interest on the debt that was incurred to fund the war. When Deputy Secretary of Defense Paul Wolfowitz was asked by Congress what the war would cost, he said that they couldn't know possibly until, quote, we get there on the ground. And he estimated that the cost would be anywhere from 10 to approximately $100 billion. So just to put that into perspective, he was off by $1.8 trillion. All right. With that perspective in place, consider that from October 2001 through August 2021, the United States Department of Defense spent more than $14 trillion, measured in 2021 dollars, for all purposes, including the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, in that between 1/3 and 1/2 of those expenditures, this $14 trillion, went to private contractors. And of those, 1/4 to 1/3 went to just 5 companies. And those were Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman, which together contracted for $286 billion in 2019 and 2020 alone. So we'll just stop there for a moment and consider $14 billion, $14 trillion, $1,922 billion, all put into attacking Afghanistan and Iraq and then rebuilding parts of them. And there's a lot of nuance and detail to that, which we'll get into in subsequent episodes. So again, we're speaking about the post 9/11 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in the context of Healing America's Narratives and the collective shadow of the United States. And in this particular episode, looked at the shadow elements of violence, greed, and excess. All right, so thanks for staying with me. I'll see you on the next episode.